And now, from approximately coast to coast, it's the Bob and Ray Public Radio Show. Thank you. Thank you very much. And we have Paul Tallman with us again and Al Schaefer over at the sound truck. We're all set to go. And we want to welcome you, first of all, here to the Bob and Ray Beg Your Pardon show. Now, as serious news gatherers and reporters, we're prone to mistakes, and unfortunately, we did it again. It was reported at this very microphone some time ago that a Mr. Hewlett Tuckering was responsible for the disappearance of a Miss Daisy Merge. Now, what we neglected to say was that Mr. Tuckering was a magician, and Miss Merge was his assistant. Mr. Hewlett Tuckering, we're awfully sorry.
That's all right. Forget it.
What happened after the kidnapping charges had been lodged against you as a result of our disclosure here at this microphone?
Oh, well, the usual. I got 10 years in jail. I felt that I didn't deserve the sentence, but you can't fight City Hall.
Gosh, we are sorry.
Don't be apologetic. You'll become ill if you do. Anyway, it was more Daisy Merge's fault than yours, actually.
Well, what did she do?
Well, we were appearing at this theater in Youngstown, and generally I'd close the act by putting Daisy in the disappearing cabinet. The idea was that she'd fall into the cellar, and I'd meet her after the show, and we'd go out for a bite.
Didn't she meet you for a bite?
Well, I found out later that she met the janitor of the theater down in the cellar there, and I guess they kind of liked each other, and they both went off to Pittsburgh.
And, of course, you didn't know that at the time.
No, I thought she disappeared. There's a lot I don't know about magic.
Well, we thought she disappeared, too. Now, of course, that's what we reported here at this microphone.
Well, don't fret about it. You see how easy it is to make a mistake? Anybody can do it.
Okay, well, now, after you started your jail sentence, why didn't Daisy Merge step forward and admit that she hadn't disappeared?
Well, she did, actually. She came to the prison one day dressed as an old lady selling apples, and she said she'd admit she hadn't disappeared if I gave her $5. I didn't have it.
That's a shame.
It was. She needed the money badly. Her husband, the janitor, was suffering from a dread malady caused by flies.
Well, that is disheartening. But you were suffering in that jail, too, weren't you?
Well, it's not too bad if you get a good cell. Mine was under a furnace.
And I guess no one believed you when you told them that you were innocent.
I protested for a while, but I soon stopped that when they poured hot lead on my elbow.
This is really terrible. I feel awful about all this.
Cut it out. You left me crying.
Well, now, what happened after you got out of prison?
Well, the Magicians' Union had taken my card away from me, of course, so I slept in the streets for about 3 months.
And then what happened?
I got sick from sleeping in the streets. You know, there's a way to sleep in the streets safely. Got to stay away from where the water runs down the sewer. I was too weak to do that.
Gosh, that's awful. We're so sorry for reporting you, really.
Stop apologizing. I straightened out eventually. There was this very nice guy, a CPA, who decided he'd take a chance on an ex-con, and he gave me a job sweeping his office.
Well, that's good. And is that where you're working now?
No, he emptied out the safe last night, and I believe the police are looking for me.
Well, Mr. Tuckering, we're not going to report you this time, so how's that for being good sports?
That's swell. And about the first mistake, relax, it could have happened to anybody. You'll find that's why they put erasers on pencils.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Tuckering, and thanks again for being with us today. And folks, be with us again when we try to cover up another one of our many mistakes. Now, here's a word of warning for the makers of Einbinder flypaper. Friends, have you noticed the ominous sign of spring that are appearing all around you? Daffodils are in bloom in many parts of the country, and there's also evidence that trees are starting to bud.
Perhaps never before has it been so frighteningly clear that summer is almost upon us. You must face the fact that hordes of flies will soon be buzzing around your head and those of your loved ones. But there is still time to head off disaster if you act quickly and rush to your flypaper dealer and spend whatever you can afford on genuine Einbinder flypaper.
It could be the one thing that will get you through this summer alive while others perish. But make certain you don't settle for anything less than Einbinder, the flypaper you've gradually grown to trust over the course of 3 generations.
And hi there, sports fans. This is your eyes and ears of the press box, Biff Burns, coming your way from Mike's side with another Biff Burns sports room guest. Highlights and sidelights from the world of sports, and my special guest today is Roy Yelvington. According to the dope sheet you sent me, you're better known to the fans and your fellow players as Little Lightning.
That's right, Biff. I've been, never too big, but I'm extremely fast. So the name has kind of stuck with me since early in my career. Fans and my fellow players have always called me Little Lightning.
Yeah, you go into all that in this dope sheet you sent me, Roy, but I notice you failed to mention what sport it is you compete in.
I play Ring Around the Rosie, Biff. And I'm in town all this week, beating the drum for the sport and trying to whip up some interest in the New York Fallers.
Well, I assumed you were here to beat the drum and try to whip up interest in something, so just to get the discussion started, what or who are the New York Fallers?
Well, that's the professional Ring Around the Rosie team that will be opening its inaugural season at Shea Stadium next month. See, I'm the player-manager of the squad. I might also mention that season ticket sales have begun at a considerable discount from what you'll have to pay at the box office later on.
Well, even at a considerable discount, Roy, do you think there's really much spectator appeal to a game like Ring Around the Rosie?
Well, Biff, we're planning some big halftime shows featuring drum majorettes from high schools as far away as Rhode Island. And we're also going to give the fans a break by selling hot dogs for a quarter.
Well, even with drum majorettes from Rhode Island and cheap hot dogs, do you think there's much spectator appeal to the game, Roy?
Well, 5 guys from each side take to the field, and we skip around in a circle, see? And then we get to the real highlight of the thing. The players join together in singing, Ring Around the Rosie, a pocket full of posy, ashes, ashes, all fall down. Now, we may have Barbra Streisand record the song so we can play it over the public address system.
Well, Roy, even if you get Barbara to record the song, do you think there's much spectator appeal to the game? That's what I want to get down to.
Well, there'll be a lot of fights among the players, too, Biff. You see, after the guys sing that part about all fall down, then they all fall down. And the last one down loses. But, of course, we'll have plenty of arguments on that point.
Sure.
And I think you can look for a Pier 6 brawl in just about every game. That's what we're hoping for.
Having fights get out of control could be entertaining, Roy, but even so, do you think there's much spectator appeal to the game?
Did I tell you we're going to sell hot dogs for a quarter?
Yeah. I think you told me just about everything I want to know, except whether you think the game has much spectator appeal.
Well, I'm not sure, Biff. I'm certainly beating the drum for it and trying to whip up some interest, but I think Ring Around the Rosie has got quite a few things going against it. The recent public opinion poll shows that we could have expected bigger crowds for team javelin throwing or Little League skateboard races, among other things.
It's as bad as that, huh?
Yeah, of course, we're hoping that the drum majorettes and cheap hot dogs and the Barbra Streisand recording will help some, but in this recent poll, only 0.2% of those interviewed said they'd pay to watch grown men play Ring Around the Rosie.
Yeah, that's what the poll indicates, and why are you starting up a professional Ring Around the Rosie league, Roy?
Well, to tell you the truth, Biff, Ring Around the Rosie was the only sport I was good at when I was a kid, so I figured I'd like to play professionally, and make a lot of money at it. Now, all I have to do is find some rich guy to take over the New York franchise before he discovers that nobody will come to the games.
I see.
I mean, I really get miffed when I read about basketball players signing pro contracts for $2-3 million just because basketball is a popular sport. So I'm hoping to collect a fat bonus myself before this whole promotion of mine falls apart.
Well, now that you've explained your real motive to our vast radio audience, I imagine the whole promotion has already fallen apart, but thanks for stopping by to tell us about it anyway. And now this is Biff Burns saying until our next get-together in the sports room, this is Biff Burns saying so long, fans. Frank, it's with great pride now that we present the almost award-winning Bob and Ray Public Service feature, Speaking Out. It's the portion of the show where we invite you, the listening public, to phone in with your opinion on some controversial issue of the day.
Yeah, that's right, friends. Now, we're generously donating our nationwide broadcast facilities, not to mention our valuable airtime, just so you can exercise your freedom of speech. We think it's a truly wonderful thing we're doing here.
Indeed we do. So, to get your opinion heard from coast to coast, just call our nationwide toll-free number, 1-800...
Excuse me there, Bob. We decided to have that toll-free phone yanked out.
Really?
Well,
I hadn't heard about that.
You weren't at the meeting there, but we found out it was going to cost quite a few dollars, and it's just seeing that people ought to be willing to pay for their own calls, since we're generously giving them a chance to speak over the air.
Well, I tend to agree with that, but I assume we'll accept collect calls from the sick and elderly who truly can't afford to pay, huh?
No way. Well, you know how some clowns will give you a sad story just to save a few bucks, and since we have no way to check on them, they'll have to pay. I think we're being generous about it as it is.
Yeah, I guess you're right. So let's get those prepaid calls in here to 555-2368, and what's our area code?
I don't know. Let them look it up in the book themselves. God, can't these people do anything for themselves?
Yes,
I mean, what is this?
I guess they can. I just thought it might be nice if we gave them...
It just seems to me that we're being more than generous, and these bums should be willing to make a little effort on their own.
Well,
we're not their babysitters.
No, I know that. Well, now the phone is lighting up, and apparently a listener took the trouble to find us. Could I have your name, please?
My name is G. George Unversaw, and I'm calling from Marshalltown, Iowa.
Marshalltown, Iowa. Good to hear from someone out there. I'm just curious, what does the G in G. George stand for?
It stands for George, too. My parents are really fond of the name.
Apparently. What controversial issue of the day would you like to give your opinion about, George?
Well, I think it's wrong to keep repeating that old adage that the quickest way to a man's heart is through his stomach.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, kids hear that, and some of them go on to become doctors. And, they can do big damage with their heart surgery if they follow the old saying.
Well, I don't think we need to go into any graphic details. Was that the full opinion you wanted to state?
No, I also think Des Moines should have a Major League Baseball team.
I guess that ties in with your other thinking, and thanks for letting us know about it. Our other phone is lighting up here. Could I have your name, please?
I'm Mrs. Lottie Drover, and I live in that part of Montana where nobody ever goes.
I've read about your area, but I don't think I've ever been out there, Miss...
No, I'm sure you haven't. Nobody comes here.
They don't. What's the opinion you'd like to state, Miss Drover?
Well, it's my opinion that this phone seems to be working again. Now, it was knocked out when we had that big snow last fall, but I just dialed your number, and it sounds to me as if you answered.
Well, that certainly would lend weight to your opinion, so I thank you for sharing it with us. I think do we have time for just one more quick call here? What is your name, please?
I'm Raunchy Troxel, and I live in that little room upstairs over Baltimore.
Okay. What public issue would you like to discuss?
Well, it's my opinion that all of our congressmen are really communist spies, and the Wimbledon tennis matches are fixed, and Dan Rather speaks in a secret code that I expect to finish cracking next week.
Well, we're only looking for controversial opinion here, and I think the points you've raised have already been kicked around until we're tired of them. Hope you other listeners with something more original to say will phone next time when we present our public service feature, Speaking Out. And now welcome again to Garish Summit and its endless story of intrigue among the socially prominent. There in stately splendor, far removed from the squalid village below, they fight their petty battles over power and money. As our action begins, wealthy Dowager Agatha Murchfield is rearranging her rare butterfly collection in the family room. Suddenly, her weak-willed son, Rodney, enters, and Agatha speaks.
Come in and close the door, Rodney. I have something important to discuss with you.
I'd like to oblige, Mother, but there's no door in this room to close. If you'll notice, it's merely an archway of the English Tudor style with some scroll work above.
Oh, never mind. I know what it looks like. Just sit down.
Very well, Mother. Believe I can do that to your satisfaction.
Rodney, I called you here to discuss your fiancée, Pamela. As you may recall, she's been trapped in deep snow near the peak of Old Baldy ever since she was thrown from her horse last autumn.
Yes, I remember Pamela quite clearly. However, I've managed to lead a full social life during her absence, so it's all right.
Your social life is not my primary concern just now, Rodney. I've been checking on the rescue efforts from time to time with a forest ranger who's stationed on Old Baldy.
I wish you wouldn't do that, Mother. I read in a recent issue of a men's magazine that most forest rangers are gigolos, just waiting to strike up a friendship with a wealthy woman like yourself.
Well, I won't deny that Vance has invited me to his watchtower for a candlelight dinner if I'm ever up that way. However, my point here concerns Pamela. Vance tells me that she was rescued from the snowdrift 2 weeks ago, but mysteriously, she still hasn't arrived home.
Well, then I'm sure she's met with foul play, Mother. Otherwise, Pamela would have rushed to my waiting arms. I wonder if we'll ever learn the story surrounding her strange disappearance.
Excuse me, Mr. Padu. Are you busy shuffling some important papers there?
No, it's nothing that can't wait, Caldwell. Come in and close the door.
There doesn't seem to be any door here. Just an archway connecting your office with that of your law partner, Faunce Willoughby.
Oh, right. Well, in that case, just sit down and tell me what I can do for you.
It's about my brother's fiancée, Pamela, who was trapped on Old Baldy when she took a fall from her horse last autumn. I hope she and Rodney hadn't signed any legal agreement concerning their wedding plans before she went away.
No, I believe Rodney gave her the world's largest diamond as an engagement gift, but that has no legal standing. Why do you ask?
Well, a funny thing happened. Pamela came to the door of the mansion a couple of weeks ago to tell us she'd been rescued from the snowdrift. So I invited her to have a sandwich and some booze over in the East Wing before we told Rodney the good news. And she liked it so well there that she stayed.
Are you saying that Pamela has been a guest in the East Wing of Murchfield Manor for 2 weeks, and Rodney doesn't know it?
Yes, and during our conversation, Pamela's decided she'd rather marry me, assuming there's no legal document to prevent it.
Well, it's not the legality that alarms me, Caldwell. I'm just afraid this might result in a scandal clouding the family name. I wonder if anyone else could possibly know that Pamela is a house guest in the East Wing of your home.
Well, I know what I saw, Wilfred. I was pruning the azaleas outside the East Wing, and I kept seeing this strange woman through the window.
Ah, extraordinary. What was she doing, Lloyd?
Mostly eating sandwiches that Mr. Caldwell kept bringing her. But then she'd spend hours just sitting in front of the fireplace. You know, almost like somebody who was trying to warm up after being trapped in a snowdrift all winter.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean, Lloyd. And thanks to your vivid description, I can guess who that mystery woman may be.
Will Rodney learn of Pamela's whereabouts in time to prevent her marriage to Caldwell? Can attorney Bowden Pardue arrange to transfer the ownership of Pamela's diamond ring? And why is Lloyd the gardener trimming the azaleas so early in the spring? Perhaps we'll learn more next time when we hear Vance, the ranger on Old Baldy, say,
Only you can prevent forest fires.
That's next week when we resume our story of intrigue on Gary Summit. And now it's time for another story of drama and tense emotion. A tale well designed to keep you in anxiety. And here with us again to set the stage for our latest thriller is the noted lecturer and world traveler, Commander Neville Putney. Commander, I assume you've reached into your amazing file and brought forth another tale, well designed to keep us all in anxiety.
Yes, indeed, young man. Our factual account today concerns a ruggedly handsome young airline pilot named Roger Stamworth and his lovely stewardess, Betty Lou Hotchkiss. Roger and Betty Lou had been assigned to literally thousands of flights together, and all had been without incident. So they had no cause to believe that their next journey would bring them face to face with anxiety. For pilot and stewardess alike, the momentous day in question started out normally enough, but suddenly the air crackled with tension as Betty Lou called Roger away from his duties to relay a bit of horrifying news.
Roger, I'm afraid I have a bit of horrifying news to relay. There's a man on board with a gun, and he's threatening bloodshed unless we change course and head for a distant foreign land.
Egad, Betty Lou, are you trying to say this craft has been hijacked?
Well, all the elements of a hijacking certainly seem to be there, Roger. There's the gun, the threat of violence, the wild look in the man's eye. That's a hijacking in my book.
Oh, egad, Betty Lou, I've always feared a moment like this, but by good fortune, my plan for handling the situation is already formulated. I'll simply overpower the ruffian and take his gun away from him.
Well, I'm not sure that that's such a hot idea, Roger. Suppose you should both be shot in the scuffle. Who'd bring this craft in safely? I certainly wouldn't know how.
Then I'm afraid you'd have to learn quickly, Betty Lou. Just get on the radio with a Mayday call and ask for instructions. Someone will come on the line and guide you in.
Well, I'm not convinced that would work. I'm all thumbs with mechanical things. Besides, if I took over, that would mean you were already dead, and I find that upsetting. We've meant quite a lot to each other over the years, Roger.
Betty Lou, this is no time to think of ourselves and the dreams we had for the future. Even if we go along with this maniac and head for a distant foreign land, there's no assurance we'll come out alive. This way, there's some hope for you, regardless of my own personal fate.
Well, I suppose it does have that advantage, and I want you to know one thing, Roger. I'll remember your heroism for the rest of my life. And I only hope it's a longer life than I'm looking forward to right now. Good luck. I'm putting my fate in your hands.
Well, there. How about that for a moment fraught with high drama, young man?
Boy, that was a story filled with plenty of anxiety, all right,
Yes,
Commander.
It certainly was.
But tell us how it came out. Was Betty Lou able to fly the plane while Roger grappled with the hijacker?
Oh, they weren't aboard a plane, young man. I don't know where you got that foolish idea. I thought I made it quite clear that the action all took place in a taxi en route to the airport.
Commander, how could you possibly think you'd made that clear? It was a story about a pilot and a stewardess encountering a hijacker. Things like that happen only on airplanes. Where would a hijacker suddenly come from inside a taxi cab?
Well, he didn't suddenly come from anywhere. He was the driver who'd been there all the time. It wasn't until he brandished his weapon that Roger and Betty Lou had reason to be fearful. But as luck would have it, the driver had to stop for a traffic light. That was when Roger disarmed him quite easily.
I see. So in other words, this is just another one of those dumb, pointless stories that you make up,
Cheeky
right?
young bounder, how dare you speak out to an officer of my rank? I was formerly a commander in Her Majesty's service.
Well, you may have dreamed that up, too, for all I know.
Well, that would be quite enough of that. Now, read the closing announcement before I see to it that you're cashiered.
Well, this copy is sure going to sound ridiculous after what we've just been through, but
I'll just read it.
I don't suppose anything can make me feel more foolish than I already do. So here goes. Well, friends, be sure to join us next time when Commander Putney will again reach into his amazing file and bring forth a tale well designed to keep you in anxiety.
And so, once again, we've gotten word that time's up for another Bob and Ray public radio show.
And that word comes from Larry Josephson, who produces the program for the Radio Foundation.
Marjorie Van Halderen was associate producer. Paul Talman provided the music. Technical director Malcolm Addy.
Sound effects were by Al Schaefer, who's never once regretted giving up a promising career in upholstering.
Our engineers were Mike Moran and Joe Lopes, production assistants Diana Freed and Stuart Zagnett.
Funding for the program by the National Endowment for the Arts and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Through NPR's Satellite Program Development Fund.
And now this is Ray Goulding reminding you to write if you get work.
Bob Elliott reminding you to hang by your thumbs.
Thank you.
For a free picture of Bob and Ray, send a stamped, self-addressed envelope to Bob and Ray Picture, Box 5000, GPO, New York 10116. That's Bob and Ray Picture, Box 5000, GPO, New York 10116.
Thank you.
This program was independently produced by the Radio Foundation.
Okay, and now, from approximately coast to coast, it's the Bob and Ray Public Radio Program. And welcome
hello.
to the show.
Yes, and we didn't have time to chat with Webley Webster or Wally Ballou or anybody before we went on the air today. But Webley, hello.
Hello
Wally.
there. It's
Hello.
a pleasure to be here. How's this show going? It sounds like a turkey back there.
Well, we only started about 30 seconds ago. You
That's,
haven't heard any much
I got
of it.
big vibes of a turkey coming.
You can't tell. You can't tell.
I
that
can
fast.
tell in 30 seconds whether it's going to be a turkey or not. This,
Well, I'd
this
like
is
to
a
know.
full-blown Tom Turkey.
I'd like to know how you can tell that. I think your opinion is going to change greatly, young man, by the end of this half hour.
Well, I certainly hope so. Meanwhile, I'll sit backstage and get the turkey cage ready in case he starts to run away.
We have a little sad music from Stan Free now.
Yes, again today, our scouts have been searching the railroad and bus stations for victims of misfortune. Now, we've found that you listeners enjoy hearing these pathetic people tell their tragic stories. And, of course, we all get a warm feeling when our generous Bob and Ray organization steps forward with its lovely gifts to solve each and every problem. So, Bob, let's start the fun with that sad specimen there beside you.
Your thing, Ray. This is Mr. Morton Boatwright of Kansas City, Missouri. And according to the card here, Mr. Boatwright, you became stranded in New York while you were attempting to begin a voyage to a virtually unexplored area of Central Africa. I'm sure there must be quite a story that goes with that.
Well, no, at least not originally. See, I was just going to Africa because you can't buy a giraffe in Kansas City. But then the tramp steamer I was planning to take from New York to the Ivory Coast left without me, and I've run out of money here waiting around for some other form of transportation, so I guess it's gotten to be quite an interesting story by now.
Yes, and I imagine it might become even more fascinating if
Yeah.
we knew why you need a giraffe so badly.
Well, that's easy enough to explain. You see, I don't live right in Kansas City. I live in a suburb about 20 miles out of town. It's like most of your upper-middle-class suburbs where the neighbors all try to keep up with each other. Mm-hmm. One of them gets a new car, then the rest of us have to go out and get a new one, too, and next one gets a boat, and then everybody else does. So I had to think of something that would usually, really take the heat out of them,
Yeah, like buying a giraffe, you mean?
Yeah. It seemed like the ideal way to flaunt my wealth.
Mm-hmm.
A giraffe owner doesn't even have to mention that he's got a new giraffe, You just put him out in the front yard and you act casual about it while the neighbors turn green with envy.
Well, seems like a diabolical idea, all right, but if you're only looking for a new way to flaunt your wealth, how do you happen to be appearing on our show as a hardship case? That's what
Well, my fried chicken franchise back home went bankrupt while I was hanging around here waiting for a tramp steamer to the Ivory Coast.
Well, you certainly deserve our heartfelt sympathy, sir, but to help you get back on your feet, I'd like to have you have this lovely gift from our generous Bob and Ray organization, a gorgeous revolving lawn sprinkler complete with 50 yards of plastic garden hose.
Well, I can't flaunt that in front of the neighbors. They already got sprinklers and garden
Okay,
hose.
use it in good health, sir. Now, our next hard luck story is Mrs. Tilly Fonts of Logan, Utah. I hear that you're in desperate need of cash so you can walk clear across the country on your hands, Mrs. Fonts.
That's right. See, I was quite a tomboy when I was a child,
In fact, I was the only youngster who could walk clear across the school playground on her hands. So I guess that's why Tubby Wertzmer double dared me to walk all the way from New York to California on my hands. It's taken me this long to scrape together even part of the money to start out.
Well, judging from your appearance, it must have been many years ago that you were a child. Do you think this little boy you spoke of still cares whether you accept his dare or not?
Oh, indeed he does. It's gotten so I hate to go into his pinball arcade back home because I know he's going to make some smart remark about my failing to walk across the country on my hands. And I still may not be able to make it. I figure I'll wear out at least 200 pairs of work gloves on this trip, and well, I can't afford to buy them.
Oh, well, that's a terrible predicament you find yourself in, but we want to help you with a handsome gift, Miss Fonce. It's a chrome-plated head block for your hot rod from Conrad's Custom Cars of Cleveland. I think you'll enjoy that.
Well, I don't have a hot rod.
Okay.
Whatever gave you that idea?
We're here to help, and we'll, I think, have time for one more hard luck story from Mr. Farley Plummer of Tulsa, Oklahoma. Is that you, Mr. Plummer? You spent your life savings on a trip to New York to have some dental work done, I think.
Well, that's right. And you may have noticed I'm only 10.5 inches tall.
I did.
So, of course, I have a very small mouth and a tiny little teeth in there. Now, I couldn't find a dentist in Tulsa who had the right equipment to handle my case, so I figured I'd better come to a specialist in New York.
I see. And now you need the money to pay for a dental specialist here in New York to work on your teeth. Is that it?
No. Now I need the money to go on to Dublin, Ireland. I found out there's no dentist in New York who specializes in people my size either, but one of them told me I'm about the same height as a leprechaun. And he assumed that those little guys all commute into Dublin to have their teeth fixed. So I want to give it a try. I've got one cavity that's really killing me now.
There's nothing more tragic, I think everyone here will agree, than to behold the suffering of a fellow human, or whatever you are. So, from our generous Bob and Ray organization, we'd like you to have this fine gift, a deluxe racing bike from Klingman and Klingman of Denver.
See, I don't know what to say, you know. Being 10.5 inches tall, I get a lot of inappropriate gifts, but this really takes the cake.
No thanks. No thanks are necessary, sir.
Yeah.
Just seeing the smile on your little face is reward enough. And now back over to Ray at our main anchor desk.
Say, I'd like to remind you that only 2 days remain to enter the giant sweepstakes contest now going on at your Monongahela Metal Foundry. Nothing to buy and only a certain amount of obligation. But you could win a full new set of extra shiny steel ingots every month for as long as you live, or one of 528 smaller prizes.
And the sweepstakes contest is so simple to enter, really. Just visit your local Monongahela dealer and give him your estimate of the total number. If your guess is close, you're a winner. But you must act before midnight tomorrow. So get on your thinking caps and start preparing your estimate right now.
Now it's time once again to pick up some valuable tips for you home handymen as we pay another of our regular visits to the basement workshop of Fred Falvey, the do-it-yourselfer. And Fred, I'm glad I found you at home today. When I saw all those rolled-up newspapers out in your front yard, I was afraid you might be away on vacation.
No, Ray. I rolled up all those papers and scattered them around the yard about a week ago. It's part of a do-it-yourself project I'm involved in.
Well, I can't imagine what it is, Fred, unless it has something to do with all the burglars you'll attract by creating the impression that you're away from home.
No, I admit having all those rolled-up papers in the yard does attract a few prowlers who think the place is deserted, but what little they steal is more than offset by the money I save from leaving papers out there until they get good and soggy.
You just leave them out there in the rain and snow or whatever until it happens again?
Yes, you see, the idea is to let nature convert the newspapers back into wood pulp. Then you can burn them in the fireplace just like logs, only the cost is much less, of course.
Well, it certainly sounds like another wonderful example of better living by doing it yourself, Fred.
I think so.
How long does it take for the natural elements to turn newspapers back into wood pulp?
Well, I'm not really sure, Ray. I read in a book where it would take about 200,000 years for paper to become converted into coal, but I'm certain changing it into wood pulp wouldn't take near that long.
Well, then I suppose it could even happen within our lifetime. That'll be a real money saver if it does, too.
It does, right.
Now I know that all our beloved friends of the radio audience are anxious to hear about the do-it-yourself project that you've chosen to describe today.
Well, today I've chosen a real money-saving project to describe for our beloved friends of the radio audience. I'm sure most of us are aware that handmade lampshades have gone up in price faster than the general cost of living.
Well, no, I wasn't aware of that, Frank.
Most people are aware of it, Ray. However, it's not generally known that do-it-yourselfers can make lovely lampshades right in the basement workshop just using some inexpensive equipment and a few simple tools.
Well, I noticed that you have some blue paper stacked up here on the workbench. Is that what you're using for your lampshade project?
Yes.
Or what?
This paper is good, sturdy 20-pound bond. Ray comes cut into 8.5 by 11 sheets as a rule, and the colors these particular sheets is blue.
Yeah, I didn't know about the size and weight. I noticed it was blue, though.
You can get it in almost any color you want. It's just ordinary mimeograph stock. And the paper mill here in the neighborhood where I bought these sheets also had it in white and pink and yellow. I don't think they make mimeograph paper in black, but you probably wouldn't want to use black for a lampshade anyway.
No, I imagine black paper would absorb too much light. So what do you do after you've selected the color for your lampshade? Do you make some kind of a wire frame to stretch the paper across?
No, you don't have to get into all that. You just roll a sheet of paper into a sort of a paper cone, taking care to leave the small end large enough to fit around a bulb socket. And then you staple the edges of your paper together using an ordinary office stapler filled with number 5 wire staples. Here, I'll show you how it's done. Like that and that.
Well, Fred is stapling along the edge of... He is. He's stapling along the edge of his rolled-up sheet of paper. That certainly is making it stay in the conical shape you want. I don't quite know what you're going to do with it, though. What are you going to do with it now?
Well, the rest is actually easy, Ray. I just unscrew this bulb hanging down from the ceiling, and I put my blue paper shade around the socket like this, and then as I screw the bulb back in, that holds my cone-shaped piece of paper where I want it. That's why I rolled the paper into a cone to make the shade in the first place, so the bulb would hold it in place.
I see. Well, of course, this piece of blue paper you've stapled together makes a fine shade for a naked bulb hanging down from the ceiling, but there aren't many fixtures like that around anymore. What if you want a shade for a regular lamp?
Well, you can buy those at any lampshade store, Ray. It's the ones for those old-time ceiling fixtures that are hard to locate. I went to 6 or 7 stores and couldn't find one.
Well, then you can save time as well as money by making your own, if you happen to be one of those rare individuals with an old-time ceiling fixture. So we could certainly say that this is just one more prime example of how to live better by doing it yourself. And we've been privileged to hear all about it directly from the basement workshop of Fred Falvey, the do-it-yourselfer.
We've got kind of a scoop right here with our next guest, and I understand he has to leave fairly soon. The story of this man's trial has been front-page news in many newspapers all across the country the past few weeks. He's the corrupt mayor of Skunk Haven, New Jersey, Mayor Ralph Moody Thayer.
Thank you.
Mayor Thayer. Is the jury still out, by the way?
Yes, it is. But my attorney is negotiating with the foreman of that august group now. And we feel we have nothing to fear. We believe that you can attract more flies with honey than you can with vinegar.
Well, Mayor Thayer, to go back over your checkered career, you were a petty forger, a master swindler, a convicted embezzler.
And convicted of perjury several times.
Yes. Now, how does it all start? How does one start out on a life of corruption such as the one you built for yourself?
Oh, I guess it started when I was a kid. I used to cheat in exams in grade school. And I used to tell malicious lies about my fellow students to the teacher. You see, I've always believed I could build myself up by tearing somebody else down.
Now, after your formal schooling was completed, I think you developed an interest in financial matters, money lending.
Loan sharking.
Yes.
I did that for several years until the criminal element in town asked me to run for public office. I took that as a mandate.
Well, I remember that first election. It still stands as the crookedest in Skunk Haven's history.
Thank you.
And From then on, of course, it was all downhill, really. Over the years, you've riddled every department of your administration with corruption, all the way from the top, all the way through, right down to the Visiting Nurse Association. I'd like to ask you one question, and you don't need to answer right away. Give it some thought,
Sure.
if you like. Would you say it's easier to be corrupt today than it was, say, 10, 15 years ago?
Oh, my,
You
yes.
would.
You see, 10 or 15 years ago, it was a disgrace to be corrupt. No, it's a very fertile field, and I recommend it to anybody with a devious mind who's willing to put in long, long hours without working hard. You'll find it terribly enriching, fully rewarding.
Well, I'm sure we'll all be able to draw something from your words here tonight. I want to thank you very much for coming by, and we'll be anxious to hear what the jury decides when it comes back in.
Well, don't give it a thought. I'm not.
Thank you, Mayor Thayer. So much for politics. Right now, a special message for parakeet owners. Friends, do you have trouble putting insect poison in out-of-the-way places where your bird won't eat it? If so, it's time you switch to Einbinder flypaper for the sake of your defenseless pet. Impartial laboratory tests show that flypaper is seldom fatal to parakeets, even when they fly directly into it.
A few feathers may stick to the paper and be pulled out, but eventual full recovery has occurred in 83% of all test cases. So for safety's sake, get Einbinder flypaper, the brand you've gradually grown to trust over the course of 3 generations.
And welcome again to Garish Summit and its endless story of intrigue among the socially prominent. There in stately splendor, far removed from the squalid village below, they fight their petty battles over power and money. As this week's action begins, we find ruthless young Caldwell Murchfield on a business trip to a large eastern city. He is unpacking his suitcase at the hotel when he suddenly turns to his trusted ranch foreman, E.L. Smitty Dittman. Caldwell speaks.
Well, I just can't figure it, Smitty. Why would I bring my ranch foreman with me on a business trip to a large eastern city?
Yeah. I reckon you know the answer to that question as well as I do, Mr. Murchfield.
No, I don't believe so. In fact, I didn't think you'd know the answer either. I only asked on the off chance that you might.
Yeah, I'll get it. Hello? Palatial Suite 1532. Smitty speaking. Oh, good evening, Miss Agatha. How's the weather back there? Yeah, we had us a real smooth flight. He's right here beside me, putting his socks in the drawer. Thanks. Nice talking to you, too. Goodbye.
Was that my mother?
Yeah, bad news, I'm afraid. Your brother Rodney's fiancée, Pamela, was thrown from her horse up near the peak of Old Baldy. The forest rangers say they won't even be able to bring her down till the blizzard stops.
Great Scott, what about the baby?
Which baby is that, sir?
The little red-haired tyke that I always see with Pamela whenever she goes horseback riding.
Well, that's not a baby, Mr. M. It's an Irish setter. I've often noticed it trotting along beside Pamela as she rode, both of them with their hair blowing in the wind. And now to think of them trapped up there on that mountain.
Well, the snow seems to be coming down harder than ever, Mr. Pardue.
Yes, and I believe we should look on the bright side of that, Pamela. The longer you're trapped up here, the bigger the lawsuit you can file when you get back.
Well, that's a comforting thought. And I'm grateful that you, as our family attorney, could get through to me even if the paramedics couldn't. Who would I sue in a case like this, where I was just clumsy and fell off my horse?
Well, I don't think this was merely another of your stupid accidents, Pamela. I suspect someone tampered with your riding gear because they wanted you to fall. Everyone in Garish Summit knew you were carrying Rodney's baby.
Well, that wasn't a baby, Mr. Pardue. It was an Irish setter. I had to start carrying it because it hurt its paw.
Well, can it be that Agatha has more troubles ahead? And what about the mysterious owner of the Irish Setter? Perhaps we'll learn more next time when we resume our story of endless intrigue on Garish Summit.
Now it's time for another story of drama and tense emotion. A tale well designed to keep you in anxiety. And here with us again to set the stage for our latest thriller is the noted author and world traveler, Commander Neville Putney. Commander, I'm sure you've reached into your amazing file and brought forth another tale, well designed to keep us all in anxiety.
Oh, need I have, young man. Today's hair-raising yarn concerns two promising young bank tellers named Warren Huey and Weldon Glimbiter. Both had received considerable praise from their branch manager for displaying the ability to make change and add figures correctly. It seemed as if promotions for the pair were almost certain, and then one terrible mistake brought them face to face with anxiety. The two heroes of our drama had struck up a casual friendship with one of the bank's wealthy clients who chanced to be president of the Amalgamated Stepladder Company. It was he who tipped them off that Amalgamated was about to unveil a new model that would glow in the dark. Warren and Weldon saw a chance to double their money overnight by embezzling funds from the bank to buy Amalgamated stock. They were certain they could replace the money before it was missed. But as Weldon returned to his desk after phoning the stockbroker to sell at a big profit, his eyes were downcast. Warren noticed immediately.
Weldon, I noticed immediately that your eyes are downcast, but you don't need to feel bad if we fail to double our money overnight. I'll gladly settle for a gain of 50%, just so we can sell out and replace what we embezzled before Mr. Prouty notices the shortage.
Yeah, I wish it were possible to settle for a gain of 50% or even break even, Warren, but when I phoned our broker and told him to sell Amalgamated Stepladder, he said he couldn't give it away at any price.
Good gravy, Weldon, I don't understand. This is the day when the new Amalgamated glow-in-the-dark model was to be introduced. Did our broker say why the development had caused the stock to go down?
No, he just said that Amalgamated Stepladder had dropped as far as it could go and that we should have known it was a risky investment when we bought it.
Good gravy, Weldon. It's small wonder you've returned to face me with downcast eyes. We're in a real pickle.
True, it's also a fine kettle of fish.
Well, I think it goes without saying that this is a fine kettle of fish, but the thing that raises it to the level of a real pickle is the fact that we didn't just lose our own money, Walt. We've embezzled funds from the bank. And we'll go to the who's cow for sure when the shortage is discovered.
Yes, there's no doubt about that, Warren. Buying stock in Amalgamated Stepladder seemed like a surefire way to get rich quick. Instead, that one little mistake has wiped out two promising careers. Now we'll be packed away to the who's cow until we both rot.
Boy, oh boy, Commander, that story really had me perched on the edge of my chair. Wow, you just can't leave us all in anxiety this way. Did Weldon and Warren throw themselves on the mercy of the court and somehow miraculously escape a long term in prison?
No, as I recall, they merely sold their Amalgamated Stepladder stock at a profit of several $100,000. So, of course, that enabled them to replace the bank funds they'd stolen and still have plenty left over to retire to the French Riviera.
Well, wait a minute. I don't understand, Commander. In your story, Weldon and Warren's broker told them that the Amalgamated Stepladder had dropped as far as it could go and that he couldn't even give it away.
No, young man. That was only a momentary misunderstanding. You see, Weldon dialed a wrong number and reached some house painter by mistake instead of his stockbroker. As chance would have it, the painter had just tumbled off an Amalgamated Stepladder at work. So, in a fit of pique, he naturally answered Weldon's inquiry about Amalgamated by saying it was worthless and risky because it had just fallen as far as it could go.
Commander, that is the most ridiculous story I have ever heard in my life.
I quite agree, and Weldon and Warren got a hearty chuckle out of it themselves once they discovered the silly error they'd made. I'm glad to see you find it amusing, too.
Well, I didn't say I found it amusing, Commander. The word I used was ridiculous. And I don't think Weldon and Warren got a chuckle out of it either, as you claim. because I don't think Weldon and Warren ever existed.
Ah,
He just made up this whole dumb thing.
cheeky young blighter. You haven't the vaguest notion what you're talking about. Now, I suggest you read the closing announcement before you find yourself in very serious trouble.
Well, after that clinker, I think we're both in serious trouble. But I'll try to get through this closing announcement. So, friends, join us again next time when Commander Putney will again reach into his amazing file and bring forth a tale well designed to keep you in anxiety.
Well, that's about it for this Bob and Ray show, neighbors. I believe we've told you before that it's developed and produced for the Radio Foundation by Larry Josephson, whose credo is, if you have to ask the price of the yacht, you can't afford it.
Marjorie Van Halderen is the associate producer, and you'll probably be happy to know the organist was Stan Free and the audio engineer, Mike Moran.
And how about funding?
Part, it's from the National Endowment for the Arts and the New York State Council on the Arts.
Additional dialogue by old Leo Leahy, and our West Coast stunt director was Greg Marlowe.
Now it's Ray Goulding saying, right if you get work.
Bob Elliott, mine are going to hang by your thumbs.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
This program was independently produced by the Radio Foundation.